Everybody, listen up to this outstanding article. We're going to go right to it in a second. Name of the article is Inside the Chinese Money Laundering Network Fueling America's Fentanyl Crisis. And let's just go ahead and jump to that right now. So, it's worth noting that 100,000 Americans die in drug-related deaths per year, the vast majority from pills cooked with fentanyl, an opioid analog 50 times more potent than heroin. Every 6 months, the U.S. drug death catastrophe eclipses the Vietnam War. Fueling the fentanyl epidemic across the U.S. are Chinese money launderers helping international drug traffickers like Mexican cartels. Capital freight from China is not a new phenomenon, but in recent years, the scale of these transfers washed through the drug trade has become very alarming. Paul Murphy from the Financial Times has provided the most straightforward explanation yet of the new Chinese money laundering network fueling America's fentanyl crisis. First, understand that Chinese nationals are barred from transferring more than $50,000 out of China each year. And yet, as you are surely aware, there are many, many Chinese nationals living very comfortable lives in the West as students perhaps, or tourists, or simply not working. Now, understand that Mexican drug cartels are harvesting untold billions of dollars in cash selling drugs in North America, and that the pill of the moment is fentanyl, which kills about 70,000 people a year in the United States. The chemicals to make fentanyl come from China. These are shipped to Mexico by otherwise legit Chinese chemical manufacturers. In Mexico, the cartels turn the chemicals into pills and smuggle these north across the border, where they are sold for cash, dollar bills that then need to be cleaned. Murphy continued. Meanwhile, in New York, for instance, there will be a Chinese student attending an educational establishment where the fees will be circa $66,000 a year, books, extras at another 100,000, 10,000, food and lodging costs maybe 5,000 a month or a lot more. The $50,000 Chinese transfer cap doesn't cover these things, so she will go on WeChat and broadcast a message to her network or friends saying, "I need dollars in New York to meet my outgoings. Can anyone help?" In due course, someone associated with what is a very efficient Chinese underground banking system will get in touch and tell the student to meet a courier at a preordained time and place, typically a park in Brooklyn. There, the student will be handed a bunch of cash. Back in China, the parents of the student will then be asked to transfer the same amount of money, plus commission, to an account that will eventually make its way to the chemical company that produced the precursor ingredients for fentanyl, settling the outstanding bill for the Mexican drug cartel. Murphy explained drug addicts in the U.S. are facilitating the Western education of Chinese youth, as well as helping to fund the lifestyles of other Chinese nationals living outside China. He provided a flowchart showing how the complex laundering system works. So as noted here in the illustration, it's the money broker network. So you have step one would be drugs, meaning the true victim is going to the United States. Number two, in Mexico, there's a China broker. Number three, in USA, there's couriers. There's code of money exchange. There's a processing courier. Number four, then the code is sent for the money. Number five, the money again is sent to number six. Then in China, finally, there's the China broker where the money is processed again, and then the broker will get back to the factory, which comes full circle to final step number 8 and 9 from China back to Mexico. So, drugs exit Mexico into the United States via buyers and dealers. Then somebody is paying the offset money. Then there's the final buyer or payer that needs to have that money in parallel transferred back in China. That will be done back in China via friends or family. And then the money's coming full circle back to China drug manufacturers. So, in a separate report last week, the Financial Times' Joe Miller and James Kingi published an in-depth analysis of the Chinese-Mexican laundering network in a recent report titled "The New Money Laundering Network Fueling the Fentanyl Crisis." The report sheds light on the less understood part of the money laundering operation, the demand for dollars from wealthy Chinese individuals. While capital flight from China is not new, the methods have become increasingly creative, involving chemical companies that in turn have fueled America's opiate epidemic. The levels of capital flight in the past 3 years have been quite alarming, one senior Chinese official told FT, adding, "Some wealthy private entrepreneurs are losing confidence in China's future. They feel unsafe, so they find ways to get their money out." Brad Setzer, a former U.S. Treasury official and an expert on global capital flows at the Council on Foreign Relations, estimated that capital threat from China is running at an annualized rate of about 516 billion as of the first quarter of 2024. This figure was even higher in third quarter of 2022, reaching almost 738 billion dollars. Okay, so the whole system of drug trafficking is being sustained by a network of clandestine Chinese money brokers, said Giovanni Melillo, the chief prosecutor for Italy's National Anti-Mafia and Terrorism Directorate. His office has been coordinating laundering probes across Italy this past year. Previous cases of money laundering in the U.S. involving Chinese nationals have raised serious questions about how much Beijing knows about these drug laundering networks. For instance, a recent Wall Street Journal report revealed that Chinese crime groups and drug traffickers used the Toronto Dominion Bank to launder money from U.S. fentanyl sales. In mid-April, the House Select Committee on China revealed that the Chinese Communist Party used tax rebates to subsidize the manufacturing and exporting of fentanyl chemicals to overseas customers. The biggest mystery here is why the Biden administration hasn't taken a tougher stance on China, while America's fentanyl epidemics kills as many citizens each year as two Vietnam wars. End of article. So, in summary, for those of us who are familiar, this is not surprising. You can make the argument of, is it the supply side or the demand side? I happen to believe it's the demand side. If every individual were to just have self-control, even if the temptation will be all around you, you just have to sort of nip it in the bud, because the supply will always be there. Other people insist that it's the supply that's influencing demand, and the supply will always be there. So they have the same logic as I, but they just don't believe that people can practice self-control. And I think that's the fact with drug addicts. So excuse me. The key point here is that you have here a very clear illustration of what happens and how it happens. And the article also points to the original longer article, which was FT's Joe Miller and James Kingi, which did an in-depth analysis on the Chinese-Mexican laundering network in a report titled "The New Money Laundering Network Fueling the Fentanyl Crisis." So, those familiar in East Asia are not surprised by these figures. The sort of shadow banking network is thriving, and it's all on friends and family. And the $50,000 limit per person per year is not just China. I think it's also South Korea, and many countries have this cap, so they're forced to go to friends and family who will also max out their quota, and then domestically within China or wherever, then they will have to sort of transfer at a pre-agreed commission or price, and it all will be with local currency, either renminbi or they might use crypto or whatever. Final point is that it's unfortunate, but these reports are just illustrating and provide very good visuals here of what exactly is happening, how it's happening, and then unfortunately the figures to go with it, which is true victims, which is drug users. So with that being said, great article, very informative, and hopefully this could all be mitigated and stopped. But it seems that there's just way too much pressure on drug users, specifically people just looking to escape from their country that is maybe not taking care of them, not investing in them, and certainly not protecting them from illegal imports, in this case being drugs from various borders, or even through the postal service, be it directly from China. Okay,